Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. You are with the Hispanic Mechanic, and today I have a very good friend, and she is podcasting on Spotify, and the name of her podcast is called Soulfull Connections.
That's right.
And this is
Hello,
Amanda
everyone.
Soler.
That's right.
Pleasure to have you today.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
So am I.
Soulfull Connections meets the Hispanic Mechanic. That's what's happening
That's
here.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, I know I heard about you through one of the members of my BNI group, Judith McDowell, who's a publisher, and she turned me on to your podcast, and I listened to a couple episodes, and then we ended up connecting, and you asked me to be on one of your podcasts.
Yeah.
So I gave my story, and it ended up being a 41-minute podcast, and
it could have been longer.
yeah, I think you did edit it.
Yeah.
But tell me, give me your thoughts of how that went, and then I also want to talk to you about how you got into this.
Okay. Well, first of all, I was so excited to interview you on the podcast because one of my loves is watching people who make their lives their message. Mm-hmm. And people who make, the good, the bad, what happens to them, mistakes, all of it, part of what they offer the world.
Right.
And you were doing that. So you were a perfect guest.
Right.
And I think it went beautifully because when you're able and willing to share, what you experience.
Yes, absolutely.
And what you've learned, that's a beautiful thing.
It is, and it's not an easy thing to do. And I commend you because, I've been wanting to write a book, a book about my life and, the lessons I've learned, and the podcast inspired me to move forward with that because we recorded in August, and I started writing November 11th. 2020. I just finished the book this past Wednesday, by the way. So
good for you!
Yes,
Oh my gosh, I've been writing a book for years and I'm still not finished. So
I applaud you for that. Was the inspiration when we recorded that podcast. You said, "Tony, you got to get this message.
Yes.
You got to write your book." And I sent your podcast to a woman I helped in real estate who's going through a divorce. Long story short, I see her, Natalie Pantaleo, on LinkedIn releasing a book. And I said, I'll be damned. If she wrote a book, I'm going to write a book.
That's awesome.
So she was the one that connected me with the publisher. The podcast that we recorded went to that publisher. And when they came to town to release her book, they met with me. They said, we want to write your book. So kudos to you. It would have never happened.
Well, I mean, it's just that web.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay.
And
it's just that web. And that's what, when I say Soulfull Connections, that's the part of it. That's the connection part, So, yeah.
That's incredible. So, tell me a little more about your experience and how Soulfull Connections came about, because from what I remember, it was a pretty unique story.
Yeah. So, basically, I started something called Soulfull Living, and I started it during the pandemic, and it had been brewing inside of me. I had, one of my children had been in a life and death situation. We were in the hospital in intensive care for half a year. And then we spent like 14 years just helping her to basically stay alive. But I learned a lot. And I kept thinking, when I have time, I'm going to do something with this information. But I never had time. I was chief operating officer of a chamber of commerce. I had 3 kids and a husband, and I was just running relentlessly. So the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden I was at home. And I thought, now's the time. And I created a website called, my last name is Soler. So it was called Soulfull Living, wrapping...
So let me stop you.
Yeah.
Spell solar, because when you gave me your name, I thought Solar. I'm like, what? And it's
right. It sounds like a solar system.
Right? So
yes.
How do you spell it?
I took it from my husband. It was his name before it was mine.
Right.
And it's spelled Soler. Solar. It's really like, the roots of it are, it's from Catalonia, and it means like of that particular earth. And what I love about it is that the soulful part, which is more of a spiritual, larger thought process, merged with that of the earth really wraps up what I want to do. I love both parts of us. I love the big spiritual, soulful part of us, and I like the pragmatic, earthy, human part of us.
Yeah.
So I just went on YouTube, found out how to make a website. I made a website. I got all of my friends involved. I started asking them to share their stories, and they started sharing it on the website. So here I am, I'm an artist, and this is what drives me and fuels me. And then, it kind of led ultimately to a podcast. And when I was doing the podcast, I didn't know what to name it. I had asked a friend to write a song for me because I thought, well, Oprah has a theme song. I want a theme song. And my friend Bill Aronson wrote a song, and he sang the word connections. And that kind of gave
So is that the jingle on your podcast before each episode?
Yes.
I listened to our episode the other day, and I just really, really, really noticed it. And I said, well, did she get a copyright for that? Or
that's
is
my
this
friend
original?
Bill's
So
song.
I knew it was original.
It's completely original. I mean, you can get music.
Yeah.
There's canned music when you're making a podcast.
It's just right in line with what you're doing.
I mean,
it's just awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I know Bill would appreciate that. I mean, he's been somebody who I talked about doing this, one day I'm going to.
Yeah.
So he kind of knew, even though I had never thought of the word connections. And that really brought people, and then taking their stories and saying, hey, here's my story. Here's what I've learned from life, what I'm still learning. And it does connect us. I think I have so many goals with it. One goal is we sometimes get ashamed of being human. The things that we do that are just human cause us to feel shame, and they're just our tools and our ways of coping and figuring life out. So I feel that if people share their stories and how they've overcome, it gives other people the freedom to say, oh, it's not so bad what happened to me or what I did, or I just want to remove that shame and just deepen that connection.
Yeah, and that does really tie in the connection when you think about it, because if you're going through something and you're hiding it from the world, you're suffering in silence, right? So here we are, we have we're tuning in, and all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm in the same situation. So right then and there, you can connect if you're willing and vulnerable enough to tie it in and see what that person did that maybe can give you a different, not only perspective, but maybe a solution, a way out.
Right.
And so much is lifted from within when you do share, when you finally acknowledge, or when you do share your story. And I think for me, when I share my story with others, or I see someone suffering in silence, I want to, it's like an SIS instead of an SOS, right?
Yeah.
Right, so that's the call, right?
Yeah,
so
I love
the
it.
Hispanic mechanic, here I am to fix you. I'm not here to fix you, I'm just here to make you feel better or help you understand your situation from a different perspective. Will it provide a solution? I don't know. But I guarantee you're going to feel better afterwards because you're addressing it.
You're giving them the tools.
You're not running from it. So.
No, part of the
And I think
secret,
that's what your soulful connection
and that's what you're doing too.
Absolutely. That
Shining
is
the
goal.
light.
Yes, that is the goal in mind.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I love, Tony, that you say, hey, this is my life. This is how it's been. Good, bad, in between. And I'm offering it to you to see how I, built a life that is more beautiful or powerful or meaningful.
I think the word would be authentic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So living your authentic life. Right?
I agree.
For me, it was all about the ego. I'm Latino, the Latino machismo thing. You're in real estate, you gotta drive a nice car. Projecting that aura outwardly that some people like, some people don't like. And, you kind of lose yourself in that.
That's right, because you get wrapped up. That's not really who you are.
No, because you're just presenting the world,
That's
a
right.
version of you that
That's right.
could not be real. And you're
then
dying inside.
Absolutely. And you're keeping that secret.
Mm-hmm.
And I think secrecy is it's kind of shame's cousin or next door neighbor.
Yeah.
And secrecy will kill you too. It's kind of like ingesting poison. And meanwhile, we're all humans. No matter who you are, no matter
so
how much
true.
you have or don't have, You know,
when you're not living your authentic life, you're pleasing others, and it goes against your grain. You don't even really, it goes against who you really are. And that will form into a tiny little cancer that starts to gnaw away. And you'll do everything to keep that going, to keep avoiding from it, be it a workaholic, a workoutaholic, an alcoholic, a drug addict.
Right. I mean, a Netflixaholic. Like,
yes.
You can escape in a variety of ways.
Oh, that's the easy way out.
Yeah.
You know, but are you really growing?
Right.
Are you being true to yourself?
That's right.
And what is the quality of your life?
Right. And what do you want? You know, the things that we say we are? Are we really those things?
Yeah.
And do we want to be those things? What do you think gave you, like, the courage to kind of actually openly share your story?
6 years ago, I was in a situation where I woke up one morning, hungover, had been arguing with my ex-wife, and they've got 8 medications on the counter. They've got like a 6-inch overhang. It was probably 60 pounds heavier than I am now. And I just looked at everything and said, you know what, I can't. I was so empty and sad inside.
And that just gave you the fuel to say, I can't live like this anymore.
I was just lost. I was so unbelievably lost and didn't know who to please anymore. And I just listened. I just closed my eyes and I said, God, get me out of here. You know?
You just surrendered.
And that's the day began. And I just vowed that day I stopped taking all mental health meds. And I just literally just went holistic. And it was a long, hard journey, but I'm on the other side of that now. And I learned so much about who I am and who I was. And that gap between who Tony was back then and who Juan is now. So now I'm embracing my first name.
I know, that's so interesting.
Yeah. Juan Antonio is my real name. So in school, the teachers would call me Juan, and I would be embarrassed. Everybody knows I'm Latino, whatever. And throughout life, I think going to Tony and professional, was more accepting or whatever. But it doesn't matter what your name is. What matters is who you are here.
Right.
People see that they're going to want to do business with you. But I think the biggest thing that I learned about me was my ability to not only overcome adversity, but to look at how I was living my life and say, hey, that's not how I was raised, number one. Number two, that's not who I want to be. Because being this person has brought me this.
When you were a boy, what did they call you in your family?
Tony. Anthony, Tony.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and my mother would call me Antonio if I was going to get, a little salsa there. But anyway, I think the biggest thing I learned was that I do have a high moral value, core values, right?
Yeah.
And those values are honesty, integrity, and trusting yourself, trusting your intuition, learning to really trust your intuition. I think is huge, and to not be scared. Fear limits us.
It does.
And if you confront your fears, what you're doing is you're freeing yourself.
Right.
And it's just so liberating.
I agree. And if you're afraid of what other people will think, they might not be your people. If they think anything bad, they might not be your people. This is a good point that you bring up, because the one thing I did notice, I left the home I lived in for 25 years, and I was holding on to something that wasn't mine. And, no matter what I did to it, I made it a beautiful place, and I just walked away from it. It was like, okay, whatever I did here, I can do somewhere else. I'll find my happiness, And in that discovery, I really leaned into my grandchildren, my daughter, my son-in-law. And what I realized was all those friends and acquaintances I had when I was going through this 2-year period of self-discovery and literally rebuilding my life. It's like,
Steve Austin on the operating table. I had lost everything.
Yeah, we can rebuild him.
So
$6 million man for our younger listeners.
$1 million Puerto Rican here.
Right.
But it was really transforming because you learn to let go of people, places, and things that weren't serving you.
Yes.
That you
and that's a big lesson.
Were.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I started to embrace more the simple things in life.
Yeah.
Like going for a walk down the trail.
Yeah.
Just appreciating nature,
I can relate
or
to that.
getting fit, doing some yoga, doing some meditation, and just getting into a different. And you know what happened is in that transformation, you meet new people in those circles.
Right.
You meet new people at the gym. You get turned on to a new therapist or some type of feel good. Unity Barn in Doylestown has been a blessing in disguise for me. And then just in general, talking to people and the way you carry yourself now, the way you do business now, it's like you're attracting you're giving out a different vibe, right? So,
it's almost like you're saying, okay, I'm starting here and going like that,
exactly.
rather than starting there and then going
in. Right. So what you're putting out is that vibe, and people in that vibration, I'm going to call it, right?
Yeah.
Pick up on that, and they want
you start attracting those people
the
who are
laws
going
of
to
attraction.
yes, that's really
absolutely.
True. Yeah, who are going to uplift you. I mean, I'm really intentional,
right.
And every new year I really look at who are the people in my world, what types of people do I want in my world, and I really think about everybody, because your environment, this is like a meditation thing, it's not just the body. We think it's the things around you and the people around you.
Absolutely. I agree.
That's
I think it's almost like when you see the Buddha sitting there and he's like all zenned out and everything else, I think inside for me, that angst, the worry, the depression, and if you're depressed, you're worrying about the past. Okay.
Right.
If you're anxious, you're worrying about the future.
Yeah.
So important to stay grounded in the moment.
That's tricky, but important.
It's. I mean, even if you're working or whatever, I know I can be working, multitasking, and I'm thinking about what's going to happen tonight or what's my plans for the weekend, whatever. But if you can really practice being in the moment, and I mean being in the moment where you can feel your chair, your keyboard's more in tune with you if you're working or whatever, or whatever you're doing, cooking a meal, let's say, or just intently listening to the person you're talking to when you're having a conversation.
Yeah.
This is big too, because I've been told, you're not listening to me. You're not listening. Did you hear what I said? And I'd be like, oh, what were you saying again? I was thinking about something,
Right. When you're thinking about something else, you're really not there.
So I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is that being present, being in the moment and totally immersed, giving your full attention and being to what you're doing. Is
that what you would, if somebody said to you, Tony, I'm where you were. I'm in that space of deep unhappiness with who I am in my life. What would your first step for that person be?
Oh, that's a hard one, because the one for me, the first thing I did was I looked at everything and I just wrote a list of everything I was unhappy about.
Oh, that's actually a great idea, I think.
Yeah. So unhappy marriage, unhappy with what I'm making, unhappy with what I'm spending, unhappy with relationships.
Wow.
Or mistakes that I've made that I need to forgive myself for. Resentment, regret, shame. There's a whole laundry list. I don't have to tell you.
Making the list.
Yes.
I think that's really
I knew. Okay, so for me, what it boiled down to, I had to address my childhood pain. So I had to heal my inner child.
Yeah.
Okay, so it all started, and I knew.
Of course, yeah.
No matter what I did, how much therapy I took, no matter what pills I took, be it holistic, pharmaceutical, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
Because that pain will always be there, and it'll resurface in one way, shape, form, or another. And you're going to be stuck in a cycle of
what that pain produces. Yeah.
Build, destroy, build, destroy.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
It's a very deep.
That's interesting.
Some people don't even know they're doing it for you. I really, I knew I had to deal with that,
Right.
but I was running from it.
Sure. Yeah.
And at this time, I said, well, you got to start from ground zero.
Wow, that's great, Tony.
But
Yeah.
I knew I was heading in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just dove in. And it was probably one of the toughest thing I really had to do. So,
Yeah.
and it's not easy. It's not easy.
No.
But so rewarding. It's the best thing. It's the best work you'll ever do as well, I'll say. So,
I love it.
yeah. If any of you are listening and can relate, if you haven't done the work, please look within and address it.
Yeah.
You'll be thankful you did. But
Absolutely.
your connections are so powerful, so meaningful.
Thank you.
You've recorded over 100 podcasts. I
Yeah.
just listened
I
to.
know. I can't even believe it
It's
myself.
amazing. So, tell me a little bit more about where you're heading and what you want to do with.
So, I think I'm just getting started. I feel like those 100 were practice
Right.
podcasts. And where I want to go now is I want to build resources and tools and a framework for people who want to live their most self-actualized life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm starting in January a subscription for a Soulfull community.
Nice.
And, there were going to be workshops and gatherings, and I want Tony to be a speaker at
Absolutely.
my first Soulful Living conference.
I'd be honored to.
And so immediately it's to continue the podcast and to build a soulful community.
Yeah.
But I have other goals and dreams, like I want to have a magazine. I'm writing a book as well. So I have a whole host of ways in which I think we can all join together and build meaningful and authentic lives, because life is going to sometimes suck.
Of course.
Sometimes it's going to be bad. So when I say build a happy life, I feel like that's a misnomer.
Yeah.
Because I think it's meaning and authenticity kind of create joyful moments and
Absolutely.
an overall joyful life.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I know I do have so many connections through the years, and I want to share those connections for the purpose of just helping us all to be our best human beings.
When I hear you speak, and I gotta say, you speak with such authenticity, and that is like
you.
the word of my podcast. If anything else, it's authenticity, authentic living. And I really gravitate towards what you're saying, making these connections. And when somebody opens up and talks about their struggles or can share their vulnerabilities, you're giving them what I'd like to say, an empowering experience.
Yeah.
Through those connections,
Oh,
we
I love
can
that.
empower each other.
Yeah.
And to me, when you're living an authentic life, I think it goes beyond just your own life.
I
What
agree.
What are you giving to the world?
I
Are
agree.
you living your calling? What is your calling? Do you even know? I mean,
Yes, I love
this
it.
is. I've done a lot of different things in my life. I was in the restaurants, really good server, and learned a lot about food and cuisine. I got into carpet cleaning. I learned about business. I got into real estate. Did well there. But it wasn't until I put pen to paper that I realized I had a talent with writing. As a little boy, I used to write poems all the time. And that kind of like got pushed to the back burner, and recently rediscovered it. And upon writing this book and sharing some of the writing, sharing the manuscript with the publisher, they're like, you never took a writing class before, right? And I said, well, I took a writing class in college, at a community college, and that was just like one semester. But, here it is. And I just love it. You got to be in a zone. It comes to me and it just flows. But the writing is,
That's great.
I hope you'll see the authenticity in the writing and the
I
vulnerability.
can't wait.
It is really something I feel that came down, was given to me to share with
That's
others,
awesome.
to help and to help people heal and empower other people.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is so important, because purpose is all part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, when I was with the Chamber of Commerce, I loved helping people build.
Mm-hmm.
I love helping people build a business. But there is something missing when somebody is really not deeply connected to their purpose.
Yeah.
And to get connected, it does require what you're saying. It requires a certain amount of
So
stillness.
true, and people don't realize it, but I can remember certain times in my life when it was absolutely miserable doing what I was doing for a living or living a certain way, not knowing how to stop the cycle or
Yeah,
the
you're
pattern.
on like
the hamster wheel,
Yes.
people call it, right? Okay,
Yeah.
great example. So recently connected with a coworker of mine, and we were talking about, had a realtor party at the house, and great party, great music. The food was unbelievable, and that was. He said, "I just knew you were so unhappy, and I was going to approach you about it." And I said,
That's interesting.
"Man, why didn't you?" He goes, "I didn't want to poke. I didn't want to pry." And I said, "Yeah, I was.
That's
I was
a
so.
really interesting thing too.
I was so.
I like though. I mean, maybe more of us need to poke a little bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot, because I think that you
Yeah.
people have to be ready, but maybe we need to have more authentic conversations.
Yeah. It brings out people. There's a little person in you that's like screaming, "I wish I could tell you what's really going
that's
on."
It.
And you want to like die inside.
And how are you?
He was
Fine.
right. He was right. And the reason why he said it was, he said, "I see you now, and I look back to that party, and I remember, but I can see how he could see the joy. He could see, the different me,
powerful.
right? Not just external, because I lost weight and
Right.
getting fit, but there's just a different way about you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that different way is just being genuine, just being who
Yes.
you really are.
That's right.
And not being scared of, this
Yeah.
guy's a softie, whatever. You know what?
Right.
Put that away. Put your weapons down.
That is a good one, especially for men.
You know
I
what?
mean, that's like, yeah.
You
But that soft thing, I think,
There's
is definitely.
this thing where tough men, suck it in, shoulders back, chin up.
Yes.
Real men cry.
Yeah.
It takes more strength for a man to
Oh,
cry.
it takes much more strength to do what you did with that list.
Mm-hmm.
To write down what you're not happy with that you have to face, that is the hardest thing to do.
I think the hardest thing was, going back to the people you hurt.
Oh, that's interesting.
Amends,
Yeah.
making amends with them, because
Right.
people forgive, they don't forget. Right. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's freeing in itself for you as well,
Yeah. Absolutely.
because you're acknowledging.
You're acknowledging, and oftentimes it's not even about how it's received, it's that you did it.
Yeah.
A lot of our life isn't how it's received. Your book is not about how it's going to be received or read. It's your offering.
Yeah.
You make the offering. You can't control any of the other stuff.
So when we talk about that authenticity in the book, it's just so raw. The publisher
Yes.
just keeps saying,
Oh, that's
I
good.
don't think I've ever read
That's
such a just intense perspective from every experience that you've
Good
talked
for
about
you.
in this book. And I said, no, we're not going to sugarcoat anything.
Good for you.
We're not going to soften this tragedy that happened.
Right.
No, this is what it was. This is how I felt. This is what I went through. But again, at the other part of the book, it's like the lessons learned from this is what this taught me. This is how I got through this time.
Yeah.
And what you discover is the power, the inner strength, the courage to move on and succeed.
Yeah.
And by succeeding, I don't mean money, whatever. Succeeding in being content with yourself and having.
Is that what you view as success? I'm always curious what people actually.
People ask me that all the time.
That's a tricky one, isn't it?
What is success? And for me, success is that you have joy in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
However
real
it may
true.
be.
Yeah.
True joy in your work, in your personal relationships,
Yeah.
in the work
That's
that you
a
do.
good definition.
And to take time for yourself. My younger brother, Frank, used to say, Tony, you don't take time for yourself. Like, I go to the gym, that is my time. And now I know what he means. happens.
Yes.
You need to take time for yourself. You need to nurture yourself. You need to love yourself.
Yeah.
And only then, when you are complete, can you give what's real.
That's a good ending line, Tony.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's for me.
Good.
That's what I've learned. Yeah, if I can
it.
share that, if you can get anything out of it,
1,000%.
Great.
Totally on board with that.
Well, hey.
Thank you.
Thank you for having.
I'm so excited.
This is my first podcast.
I'm so excited that I'm part of it and part of what you're doing, because I think you're doing great, exciting things that I do think the sky is the limit, and I'm happy to be along for the ride in any kind of way.
Yeah, I'm excited too, and the most, I think the biggest thing I'm excited about is the positivity, the message that we're putting out.
I agree.
That so many people, I hope, will receive in a good way. So, thanks for tuning in, Amanda.
Thank
you so much.
Thank
Good luck with everything.
Yep.
Tune back in; you won't be disappointed. Thank you.